How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to Andreas Fröhlich Poker. This is the review of the day number 16 of my bankroll challenge, going from $24 to $1,000. I want to start off with a quick overview on where I'm at the bankroll challenge. As you can see, I started with $24 in day number 1. I want to move it down to $1,000 after day number 30. I'm at $342 after day number 16, going to day number 17, playing 7,800 hands on the prior day. I think I have to, come up with this average of around 6,000 hands in order to complete this challenge, because otherwise I'm just not going to make enough money on these micro stakes, capping myself at PL of 5 cent, 10 cent. You can see that with the rake back of $11, I made about $17, which is definitely not enough. It definitely hasn't been the greatest day, but let's have a look at the hands together. As usual, I'm going to go through some of the most important hands with you guys in this stage of this video, having a look at what went down on this day number 16 of the bankroll challenge. Now here I limp along with the 7-6-4 for double suited, and also I'm calling the raise from the big blind. I flop middle set and the gut shot. My opponent goes ahead and bets fairly large, and I think he's gonna connect with the flop really well, but not nearly, has as many set of tens that we should be afraid here. We'd also have some backup, and I'm pushing quite some decent amount of equity against some combo draws, over pairs and flush draws, and even combo draws we're ahead of that, of course, for the at least most of the time, unless it's like the perfect one. Here he sacks off with ace queen 3 and has 3 hearts, which hurts his equity and puts him down on 36% of equity, and we take down this pot. Second hand that I played here is I make a non-optimal 3-bet here from button versus cutoff. If you want a 3-bet here, you should really be careful what your connectivity is. If you have queen 10 7 6 double suited, that is making a significant difference here. That's just pushing, sometimes 1% or 2% in this situation, because you can still flop wraps. If you flop the 8-9, the 10-7-6 will connect way more strongly than the 10-7-5. So these subtle differences matter, and I did neglect that in this shoes. I would usually go ahead and fold, especially once you see that this opponent here has been playing much on the tighter side. He's not been opening as much on the cutoff. But what went down here is this other guy coming along, and we actually get the money in all in pre-flop 3-way. Ended up having 40% of equity, which is really great when you think about it. You need 33% of equity to have an even chop, disregarding rake. So 40% is really a great situation. However, I did have a look at the numbers afterwards, and I actually made just $1 single on this stack off. That's 10 big blinds. That's a lot. But also we have a lot of equity. We have 40% here 3-way, which is one of the best case scenarios. And you can see this dude has 11%, absolutely murdered here. I think I've never seen someone 3-way stack off with 11%. I think this is like a first time. Absolutely insane. But yeah, given that we have 40%, we should make some more money, and I'm gonna come back to this topic later in this video. Ended up taking down this hand, luckily, as we make a boat. Here I do have aces. Go ahead and call the lead here. I think raising here wouldn't be too good. We would get it in against 4-6 sometimes, and we're still behind, of course, and the SPR is on the higher side. We're very deep. Go ahead and just call the lead here with my nut flush draw and overpair. We turn the nuts, and our opponent pop bets into us. At this point, also blocking one of the pairs on the board. I don't think I should raise all that often. Just give my opponent some rope to hang himself here with the nut flush, and hope that the river doesn't pair. Sometimes you could throw in a raise if you don't have any pair from the board, and then also occasionally bluff raise with the ace of clubs. But I think, yeah, calling here again is going to be the play. Then on the river, he goes ahead and for a half of bet. We obviously jam, and he goes ahead and calls us off with the second nuts, and we stack someone for 150 big blinds, the biggest pot of the day. And yeah, pretty nice. We got kings double suited. We go ahead and 3-bet versus the button, go 4-way to the flop, and we flop top set and a flush draw. At this point, I think that the connectivity of the board will allow some people who have hand ranges that also have a heavy focus, meaning they're Broadway oriented. And I think people are gonna step a bit too often on this board, and I give 3 people the opportunity to do so, and also having the diamonds myself, and I think that most people would bet the nut flush draw anyway, I have less to protect against, and it's an optimal situation to go for the check raise and get as much of the money in as possible. Also note that I'm actually having quite a high SPR against 2 people, meaning there's a lot of money behind compared to the pot size. There's 360 here, and we got $16 effective. So I don't want to play multiple streets out of position with a somewhat well-defined range once I start betting here. I can really not bet that many more hands than top set and some nut flush draws plus gut shots. So on some runouts, maybe also backdoor clubs or even straightening runouts, I'm gonna have some troubles, I think, being balanced, and I rather want to get the money in right away with the nut hand here. Now, it's good for me that this guy actually has an SPR 3 only and stacks up with the top 2 pair and nothing to go with it. And he has 3% of equity here, of course, and it's another great hand that went really nicely. But not everything always went so well. This hand actually still went well. We get it in preflop with 32%. Here we would need 25% minus Rake to stack off probably. In the end, this hand went post-flop, so we unfortunately saw an equity shift here, meaning that the money doesn't go in well. However, we ended up rivering the ace and quadrupling here, so it was a good outcome at least. Here I had aces. I went in a 4-bet out of position with all of my aces at this stack depth, and he calls. We do unfortunately flop the king eye board, making him top set, get the money in, and have 11% only. So this has been one of the worst hands. Of course, when you have that equity shift in a 4-bet pot, it's obviously horrible, but no big deal. You know, it is bound to happen. We played 7,800 hands on that day. Here, also one of the biggest hands is gonna be one of the big bluffs that I was trying to pull off here. I had on the turn a hand that definitely can get the money in pretty badly, so it speaks for a check back. I think that a cold call range here specifically, check calling here will be extremely, or I would say heavily weighted towards having hearts here, and also had a 9 blocker, and thought that I'm going to also use this as a future bluff on the river if certain cards rule off, and it did happen. The 6 of heart rolls off, and I think I'm gonna have a lot of boats. I'm gonna have 10s here in these situations, and most importantly kings that I want to fire for full pot here on the river, moving my opponent off a flush. He plays 14-8-2, and I thought that at this point it was going to be reasonable that he was going to let the flush go here. Not really a boat, so if he has something like 10-6, 7-6, I would expect him to call. But eventually he tanked, I think, a little bit, but then he called after like 10-15 seconds, and that shows that, you know, you have to take a note here. If someone calls you with ace 9-9 deuce here, it's just that he has no folding range whatsoever. He just doesn't fold a single hand here on the river almost. I mean, what is he gonna fold? I mean, he check called twice on this board. If he doesn't want to fold ace 9-9 deuce, then he at least has a flush here on the river, or maybe some 2 pair. Maybe you could fold like the same hand, king 10, maybe you could have that. But yeah, the folding range is like 10-20%, and everything else is calling. Is gonna have some boats. He, you know, some 10-6, 7-6 in there, and then obviously a lot of flushes. Maybe he would have folded a queen high flush, so that his folding frequency goes up maybe to 30%. As promised, I want to go now into what I've learned from the bankroll challenge, what you guys can do differently if you start your own bankroll challenge from me, and, you know, avoid some of the mistakes that I've made going to this bankroll challenge. The first thing is not underestimating the rake. I've talked about this quite a bit on the channel, and I realized that playing micro stakes, you can, for example, look at the queen 10-7-5 double suited hand that I had a look at earlier in this video, and you can see that I was going all in with 40% of equity all in pre-flop against 2 opponents, which is a lot. That's a 7% gap to what you need to break even before rake, which is 33.3%. Now, in this situation, I am supposed to make a lot of money because PLO is just a game where equities run really close, and when you have 40%, you know, you just get the money in preflop very well, and you're not supposed to lose money in these situations when you try to make the best decision over and over again. Now, as I also said in that hand review, this hand wasn't going to be a 3-bet and I shouldn't have ended up in that situation. And this is definitely something that I want to keep look at a bit more closely when going into day number 17 and onwards, that I don't push those pre-flop spots nearly as much, because getting in the money pre-flop on PLO 5 cent, 10 cent can sometimes, when you do have aces, for instance, be a very good outcome if you consistently can go for those 37 to 40% of equity 3-way, or for example 55% heads up. But in a 3-way situation, when the money goes in, you're gonna rake 5% on the entire amount, and every one of you is gonna have a rake share of 1.67% roughly. And that means if you do it 60 times, if you go all in pre-flop with 2 opponents 60 times, you're gonna rake an entire bind. Yes, you're gonna rake $10 on 5 cent, 10 cent, and this is a disaster. You're not gonna get, you know, that much back from rake back. I think the 10% with some of the promotions out there is gonna be somewhat reasonable, but this is gonna be it. You're just gonna lose a bind if you go all in 60 times against your opponents, and you have to make sure that you consistently aim for those high numbers when you go all in pre-flop, that you, you know, in a 3-way situation, are much higher than 33%. In a heads-up situation, that you consistently are higher than 50%. And it's just so much more important than on higher limits, where the rake share when multiple players go all in pre-flop is not going to be 5% or maybe something like 2%, where, you know, you get an additional 1.5% or even just 1% means a lot. If you go all in 60 times, you're going to have 60 big blinds. Additionally, that is, you know, it's going to be your money and not PokerStars money. So rake is going to be the most important factor on microstakes, despite, of course, having the skill to do it. But, you know, really being careful what you go all in pre-flop. The second thing that I also want to address is that when you're playing microstakes, sure, you're going to have, you know, terrible opponents, but at the same time, you always want to be online when the best games are running. It doesn't matter that you have shitty opponents. You know, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have the highest win rates possible. And you want to make sure that, for example, if they're regular speed tables, not Zoom tables, that you have the worst opponents possible, and that you just play when those people come online, that you have a marking system. You tag every one of your opponents over the course of a month, 2, 3, so that when you see certain, you know, whales coming back to the tables, that, you know, you take advantage of it and play when they are playing, and you're not just, you know, battling with other, you know, they could be bad Reks, they could be tight players, but you don't want to just battle with those guys necessarily. I mean, you have to eventually, and you can train some of your skill sets for sure, but if you have 2 or 3 players that play 20, 15 and with a 3-bet of 5%, you probably want to not play those games when it comes to microstakes. Try to find, you know, those whale games where people play 90% of their hands, and you can just capitalize on your pre-flop and post-flop with advantages of your playability of your hand, and just make a lot more money, having a lot higher win rate following that strategy. So game selection is one of the most important things in general in poker, and, you know, in a bankroll challenge, you know, having the right game selection, whether it's tournaments or pot limit Omar cash game, it is one of the most fundamental things that you're going to watch out for. And if you do your own bankroll challenge, I just highly recommend you tag players, play at the best times possible, and just make sure that, yeah, that you spend every hour playing poker in that zone where you make the most money. I hope that you guys enjoyed this review of the day number 16 of the $24 to $1,000 challenge. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button down here and subscribe to this channel for more updates coming up in the future. If you want to watch some other videos, I think there's going to be some coming up here, some hand history reviews of the WSOP 2018. And then thanks for watching this video, and see you for the next one.